order the Wednesday, June 8th, 2022 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Klaus-Smith. I am the chair of the commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present the staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following the presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When coming to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed, and the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review, or HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing tonight. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. Now, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and we will start with an introduction of my fellow commissioners, starting on my right.
I'm Brent Taylor, and I'm a building contractor.
My name is Stephen Sutton. I am a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair for this commission.
I'm John Prokop. I practice architecture.
Dan Myers, I'm an architect.
And with us tonight, we have Ron Vila, Elaine Lund, Aminta Owens, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel, our city attorney. And again, I'm Susan Klaus-Smith, and I am an architect. We'll move on to...
Good evening, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
I have
None.
none.
Additionally, will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have, did I just say ex parte communication? No. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
Has
None.
had
Not.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down the agenda under continuations, we have none reflected this afternoon. We do have one item to bring current. The first one that's reflected on your agenda this evening has misnoticed, so they will have to perfect the noticing. Currently, they're trying to get into the July cycle, July 11th. They will have to repost and perfect that noticing, but no action is required this evening for you. We're going to move to the swearing at this time. Ms. Owen will swear us in. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand.
Including the members of the audience.
no action required.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We're ready for the first case.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Elaine Lund with Historic Preservation. The first item that we'll be reviewing tonight is case number ARC 22-168 at 5601 North Branch Avenue. This is in the Seminole Heights Historic District. This is a contributing property of the Historic District, bungalow built in 1926. So the request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of an accessory structure and site improvements, including fencing. This application came to us initially as a violation, so when we go through the photo essay, you'll see these elements already at the site. So moving to the photo essay then. First, we have the location map of the historic district, and you can see where the property is located within the district there in green. The blue boundary is the National Historic District boundary, and the red line is for the local historic district boundary. This is the 1920s Sanborn map showing the location, and this time the local historic district boundary is in red there, but you can see the building as it was in the 1920s on site at the corner of Comanche Avenue and Branch Avenue. And then this is the present-day aerial of the property. Again, at the northeast corner of Comanche and Branch Avenues. And then this is looking at the front of the house. This is the west facade. This is looking at the north side of the house. And the property just to the north. This is looking at the south side of the structure on the site. And looking toward the backyard. This is view looking east along Comanche Avenue. This is looking, just a moment, sorry. I believe this is looking directly to the south.
Yes, from the side.
This is the rear of the residence on the subject site. And then this is the accessory structure. And another shot of the accessory structure. And then just the east side there of the accessory structure. And the back of it. The site faces north, internal to the property. This is a view looking from the alley behind the house onto Comanche. And a view looking into the alley, looking north, with the subject site on your left. And that concludes the photo presentation. So at this time, I'd like to ask the applicant to present their request.
Forgive me, I don't have any other documents besides what we uploaded into the Sella website, but thank you for your time tonight.
Kamaria Pettis
Oh, sorry. My name.
Well, that too, but hold on one second. Kamaria Pettis from the City Attorney's Office. Would it help you if you had your additional information? Ms. Lund, do you have it in your file to provide them? They don't have anything.
I will take a minute to
Sorry.
see what we have here. I'll check.
I know there's
So-
a site plan. We have wall elevations of the shed if you'd like. My name's Michelle Day, 5601 North Branch Avenue. I'm the owner of the property, co-owner.
Okay, one second.
Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. If I could address the board at this time. The first two cases, I think they need a little more coaching this evening to present in a timely fashion. If we could amend the agenda and start with the last one first, while Ms. Lynn assists her clientele.
Can we just have a motion?
Motion, please.
To take ARC 22240 now. To amend the agenda.
Just need a motion to move the item up.
I move that ARC 22-240 proceed ahead of the other two projects on the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so aye.
Aye.
Seeing no objections, the motion carries.
Commissioners, good afternoon. Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. The item that we're going to address first on tonight's Public hearing will be ARC 22-240. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The address is 1405 South DeSoto. There is a contributing structure that dates back to 1922. The current underlying zoning is RM16. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction. They're going to do an addition to the primary structure with site improvements. And I'm pulling up the photo presentation if you give me 1 minute.
Is this the one from Acela?
It is.
Can you pick the one on the desktop for me, please?
Well, I have to do
He's doing
something
his
first to make-
presentation
Oh, my
first.
fault.
So up on the monitors is the 1929 Sanborn map. Property in question is highlighted in the green parcel. That's not the right one. I apologize for the confusion. Once again, this is for the DeSoto property. Property in question is highlighted in the green parcel. It does face DeSoto. To the north, you have hills. You have Burns Park as a reference point, which is here. You have Bayshore Boulevard to the south, and you have Howard to the west. This is the vicinity map of all of Hyde Park. Property in question is toward the southern boundary. You have, once again, Howard to the west. You have Bayshore to the south. Property fronts DeSoto, and you have hills to the north. This is an overhead shot. You see the tree canopies. None of the trees will be affected. Natural Resources reviewed this project, and it is consistent to move forward tonight. Once again, you see hills, Burns Park to the north, Howard Avenue, and the house fronts DeSoto. This is the front of the property. They're coming forward tonight to do an addition to the rear of the property. This is a shot from the sidewalk. There is a pop-up on this Craftsman-style bungalow, but from the sidewalk, you can't even see the existing pop-up, and this addition is behind that, as the photos would show. This is the southern portion of that Craftsman-style home. You see the second story as it peeks around. This is the drive aisle on this side. Currently, the driveway terminates about 20 foot into the property. They're going to extend the drive aisle to accommodate parking on that side. This is that same elevation. This is the southern elevation. You see a little bit of the back and then the south elevation. As I stated, this will be the drive aisle on the side. Staying on that south side, this is the abutting property on that side, so you get a context of the inventory that's currently there. Moving to the north elevation, a lot of vegetation. You just see the second story kind of popping up. And on that north elevation, or that north abutting property line, you have a period home in between all the foliage there. Some street shots looking down DeSoto. This is towards Bayshore. And then in the other direction, looking back towards Howard. Crosses hills, and then you have Howard in the background. Directly across the street, have another Craftsman's house. Going back to the subject site, focusing on the rear of the property, where the addition will be. This is the current condition. Just zooming in a little bit more. on that back elevation. And then panning around to the rear of the yard. This are the two trees that show the canopy that's there that will be not affected by this request, and the little shed that they have. That concludes the photo presentation, and these will be here if you need them throughout the presentation. At this time, I have the representative address the board.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kendall Ann's. I am the agent for the property owner, Deborah Hargraves. I am also the project manager for Lattice Architecture, completing this project.
And you said that your presentation is on the desktop?
Yes.
I just clicked over.
So the screen is like a computer, so you should be able to see it right there?
I just see HDMI laptop and a black screen. I mean, I do have the prints of just black and white.
I think they're working on it. There it is. Oh, no, that's fine.
See.
We're having a little difficulty with the computer. You got a hard? She's got a hard copy as well.
How do I zoom in?
Go ahead and try it again.
Still says HDMI laptop. There's the screen still black.
So, why don't you just do the hard copy presentation?
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's see. It should be this one. Perfect. Okay. I'm sorry, is it? This is not the right one. There we go. Okay. As Ron mentioned, we have a bungalow-style historic single-family residence, and the client, the owner, would like to do a small addition, and we have located it in the rear of the property to preserve the historic details of this structure. So here we have our existing and proposed site plans. So this side here is DeSoto, and you can see the front porch, and then this is the area of the existing structure. Currently, there is a wood deck in the back, and then here is the tree that Ron mentioned and the existing shed. So if we look at that compared to the proposed site plan, we can see that the overall footprint of the building is a very small extension in this lighter gray area right here. And then this would be a wood deck and stair just to kind of preserve the deck use for the client. We are also showing the existing ribbon driveway, which currently ends about where the main house starts. And we're showing a proposed extension of that if required with the value of the addition. So it would go beyond 36 feet behind that front, door. And so they could get 2 parking spaces there. And we are showing the concrete and then the gravel in between the ribbons. These are the existing and proposed elevations. Starting at the top left here, this is the existing front elevation. And if you look down below, really nothing has substantially changed. The only thing would be maybe to fix some lattice in the front. For the side elevations, we still have the main massing of the house, and then we just have a small pop-out that happens mostly on the first story and a little bit on the second story, but everything is tucked away behind view of the front of the house. And when we go to the rear elevations here, we can see that we created the addition so that we were inset from the edges of the house so we could preserve the corners and the eaves of the original detailing of the house. And so here you'll see the first floor extension and then the second floor above, which doesn't come quite as far out. And then we are using the same brackets, gable vents, rafter tails, which we'll see in a few minutes in the materials palette. Same siding, all the consistent materials with what is already there. Here are our wall sections. We have a 2-story and a 1-story. This is a wood-framed house with wood floor joists, and the second floor we proposed wood trusses with, typical wood roof. We have shingle siding, of course, typical insulation siding along the wall. We have a pier foundation, which is brick, so we're proposing a CMU with brick veneer foundation to match the piers. And then there's a lattice inset. Another thing to note on these details is the window recess. So we have some window sections here, and you'll see in some of the pictures in the material palette that the window has a 4-inch recess, and we're proposing to match that recess there. So here's the material palette. This is a little bit of a 3D render. So here we're kind of seeing a little bit of the addition in the back, but ultimately that wouldn't be in view because of proximity of the neighbor's house and the landscaping. Here is the rear view in 3D to give you a better idea of what it'll look like 3-dimensionally. And then into the materials, we have an existing siding, and so we're going to match that 6-inch cypress bevel siding with overlaps and the corner joints alternating so that we can preserve these details. Here on the left, you'll see a picture of the existing soffit and the gable vent. So same thing here, we're gonna use a beaded soffit on any of the new soffit areas, and then on the new gables, we'll use the lattice with a screen behind it to do the decorative gable vent details, and everything will be wood. Here's the existing Craftsman bracket, and so we will be fabricating those with woods to match for the addition. Same thing with the rafter tail ends. These are the existing ones, and so again, we'll just match these along any of the hip roof edges. Has a typical shingle roofing, color to match. Foundation will have the brick piers and the lattice as mentioned. The colors obviously aren't the same in this example picture, but I did pick this so it would show how the lattice is set behind the brick just slightly, so the brick is proud of the lattice. Here's the existing deck in the back. We propose composite wood decking for the small deck that will be replaced with that. Here's the existing railing, and again, we propose that we match that. So you can see we have our cap rails, our top and bottom rails are 1x4s, our spindles, and our posts, all to match the details of the existing structure. And then here's a picture of the existing driveway. It is concrete and with gravel center. And then you can see here, this is just a blown up detail, but this is what we were proposed to match with a concrete control joints every 5 feet and then gravel in the center. And if we are required to do this site improvement, then we will ensure that it meets the 3 foot, 3 foot, 3 foot standard. Here is the window casing. So in our detail, we have a 1x5 wood trim at the top, which has a little bit of a custom curved profile, the top trim, and then the side trims are a standard 1x4, and then the bottom stool trim is a 2x3 turned out, and then it has a 1-inch extension beyond the side trims to match the existing detail. So that's what we propose with any new windows. We have wood windows, double hung. The Marvin Ultimate Series would be congruent with this historic style, as I've been told. And then here's a rear door that would be wood and painted to match. And this one is just for access to the rear addition. It needed a little bit of privacy, but we still wanted to keep with the overall style of the house. And then finally, this would be the hardware. This just matches the front door hardware, and then the exterior wall sconce to match the current wall features that are on the front of the house. They don't exactly have a wall sconce, but this is in the same style as the existing lights. And I believe that's everything on my presentation, so of course I'll open the floor to questions.
Actually, we'll go to the staff report.
The staff report, sure thing.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. We reviewed the plans from May 18th, 2022. We had some conditions attached to our consistent review. On page 4, through her presentation, she hit all the bullet items that were addressed, and we believe this is complete and ready for final. So I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. We will now open the hearing to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against this case. Seeing no one, we'll close that portion, and the commissioners will begin asking questions, starting with my colleague at the left. Mr. Myers.
Could we go back to your railing detail?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm asking questions. Oh, I have to ask you questions. I can't ask anyone else questions. Okay. Is it your belief that this railing detail is consistent with the age of the house?
Yes. I believe it's consistent with what is there currently.
But is there any, are you retaining any of the existing railing?
A lot of the existing railing is deteriorated, so that's not really an option. So we wanted to match what was there.
Okay. I am questioning whether that is appropriate to the age of the house.
Sure.
But we'll work
Sure.
through that later.
Yeah, okay.
No further questions.
I had a couple of questions. The wall sections that you put up, you said that they're brick wrapped CMU piers, but there was no brick on the wall sections.
It was a very small detail. I mean, I'm not trying to mince words or anything, but yeah, it would be a brick veneer. And so I think it either I didn't make it clear enough, or maybe we can zoom in a little bit here. It says brick veneer.
Right, but
So
I guess what I'm trying to clarify, is it veneer brick, like a half-inch thick brick, or is it an actual brick coursing veneer that you intend to put on here?
Our intention was to do a true veneer, although we are open, to changing that if necessary.
Meaning, clarify, what do you mean by veneer?
Veneer meaning a very small, like half-inch veneer over CMU.
A thin brick.
Yeah. Which again, I know we brought this up before, but it's more appropriate to use an actual brick
An actual course of brick
in a
around.
historic district
Sure.
than it is to use a thin brick glued onto a piece of CMU.
Sure, I can understand that,
It's just,
absolutely.
it's more appropriate. I know there are ways the staff can accept a thin brick veneer, but it's still more appropriate to use the real, actual material that would
Sure.
have been used in the original house, because they didn't have brick
Sure,
tiles
Yeah, of
back
course.
then.
we'd be happy to accommodate that.
The second floor windows in the addition seem a little out of proportion, out of scale.
Okay.
They seem fatter, to use a really technical term.
The reason that we did that was for egress, and then we wanted to match the windows.
In heights.
Well, if we had 3 windows, I didn't want one to be wider for egress than the other 2 right next to it.
Okay.
But yeah, so we matched the height, and then we did increase the width for egress purposes.
To meet the minimum.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the one other comment I have, and it's been a pet peeve of mine I mean, I'm new on the board, but it's been a pet peeve of mine forever,
Sure.
is that any addition to a historic structure, that the detailing be compatible with, but not exact duplication of, because duplicating it cheapens the real stuff. So to duplicate an exact bracket that's the exact copy of what 100 years old is, it weakens the significance of the original stuff.
Okay, sure.
So to do something very similar and compatible, but with maybe a small tweak or twist that someone knowledgeable can look at it and go, that was put on later, that's
Sure.
not original to the building.
I could understand that.
Okay.
My client, that would probably be easier for her anyways than to have something custom fabricated.
But
so-
that's something that, no, it would still be, needed to be very close, but
Sure.
I think that's something staff can
Okay.
address. Otherwise, I commend, the setting in from all the edges. I noticed that the eave is probably the roof eave is about 4 inches below the top. It's not trying to match, it's reduced and less than, and that's one of the, the Secretary of Standards kinds
Okay.
of guidelines, is it?
Sure.
You inset and shorten and don't match everything.
Okay,
And that's the same with the detailing, is you
Gotcha.
don't perfectly match the detailing.
that makes sense,
That's all.
absolutely.
Would staff kindly please bring back up a large format photograph of the front of this building? I'd like to follow up with my fellow commissioners' comment on the appropriateness of the rear railings on your rear porch. You'll notice here on the front, you have your piers for structure, you have your piers flanking your entrance, but it's basically an open edge. And I think in terms of an appropriateness, an open edge to that rear deck would be more appropriate, or if you're going to add a particular element between piers, a much lower rail, which would be a sitting rail, or something you could put a cold drink down on. But in terms of a guardrail, if you don't need it, if you don't have the requirement for that because of your height above grade, something more simple, more in keeping with what we have for the front of this building, I think would be more appropriate. I understand the comment on the windows. I think the detailing you've gone through is quite sympathetic for this building. The only question I have is regarding to the lighting you have. Have you actually had an opportunity to take a look at a physical sample of that fixture with respect to the facade of the building? And I bring that up because it seems like it might be a bit out of scale.
I can see where you say that, and I have not looked at a physical sample of that one. It did look taller than what I was accustomed to, but we'd be happy to sort of keep something in that style and look at something more proportional.
Thank you very much.
I've just got a couple of questions, more or less clarifications. The wall detail that you brought up shows aluminum fascia, vinyl rafter tails, and then in previous documents there was also some verbiage about vinyl being used in the gable vents. In your presentation, you said all that will be wood. So which one will it be?
It'll be wood.
Okay. And then on the rear door, as far as the divided lights go, are they going to be SDLs?
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Can you bring the site plan up, please?
Yes.
And if you could, please zoom in on the proposed. Are there any additional units going in for air conditioning?
Right now, we have 2 units, a smaller one that services the upstairs.
Right.
That one will probably need to be replaced, but it wouldn't be additional.
Okay. And those are all behind the fence, right? The current
Yes.
fence?
And there is screening with landscape around it currently.
Okay. Upstairs. And what is the elevation of the proposed new wood deck from grade?
It's approximately like 2'6". I believe there's 4 risers with that. I have to.
So do you believe that you would be at that point where you would require the guardrail?
Unfortunately, I think so.
Okay. Could I see the rear elevation one more time, please?
Yes.
Are there any architectural details on the existing elevation? Can you look at the existing one right above it?
Sure.
And then back down, I'm sorry, just one more time.
No problem.
Okay. So it looks like potentially there's at least one architectural bracket from the existing bungalow that would be impacted by this construction at the lower right.
This one would technically be able to stay. It should. You know, obviously needing to be careful during construction. But we are not extending that wall edge at all.
Okay. However, it is within that realm of the new addition. There are these existing brackets, correct?
There are brackets that are here, and one is on this side that are
Correct.
existing.
So there are at least 2 existing brackets within that realm of the rear addition that would be within view, correct?
You would see them, yes.
Okay. Can I see the, I guess that's the south elevation, so I could see the new addition from the south again, please? I guess it's right next to it. I think it's right next to it.
Oh, you're talking about, oh, sorry. South is this one, yes.
Is that the right one? Nope, I need the other side. I guess it's the north. When these are those slanted sites, it's always hard to keep that straight.
This one.
Yes. So I was wondering why this elevation is so blank. You have the one proposed man door, which I thought had at least half light in it based on your presentation for the doors, right?
Yes.
But was wondering, was there consideration for adding any openings on this elevation?
We had originally had some openings there, but based on the size of the windows and the pattern, it was kind of tight to get the 2 windows in there, and we felt like the one was out of place.
What are the spaces at the second floor and the first floor that face this way?
We have, this is a bedroom,
Okay,
and then we have an office, which is here.
but what's on the ground floor next to the man door?
Right here, that is like a laundry and bathroom.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time. Anyone else with any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I don't feel like I need to rebut anything, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We will go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case. So, any points we need to discuss?
Overall, I think this is a sensitive addition, although I must come back again with my fellow commissioner. There's just something about that guardrail at that rear porch that seems out of place. I think it needs to be revisited in some fashion.
Can you move your microphone closer?
I think it could be, or should be revisited in some fashion with staff, in terms of something that has, you know, the kind of mass and kind of lattice type work that you would normally see of a building of this vintage. That's the only thing I have a real big problem with.
Well, I would like to utilize Commissioner Prokop's point earlier about, you know, when we're making additions, they don't necessarily have to match precisely anything within the historic context as long as they're compatible, right? And I would agree that there should be an air of compatibility to the components that are added that are new. It's quite obvious from the evidence given here tonight that this deck and the existing deck and railing were add-ons well after the initial construction of this historic structure. So in the first place, they are not historic in and of themselves. I do agree with the comment about the more open edge, you know, the heavy timber, basically railing component to create that, you know, that safety rail for the entry porch. And I do think that there are other ways that you can do the railing. However, as long as we feel it's compatible with the district and the historic time period, I don't find this rail inconsistent with others that we've seen. So that's my feel, at least. I think it's compatible with the timeline and the district. I don't know that it's necessarily compatible with this particular historic structure because it wouldn't have had one in the first place.
This is the railing in the back?
Correct. We are not talking
Okay.
about we're using the entry one as an example because it's there, it's on the property, right? But when we talk about the historic guidelines, we talk about the district as basically our body of evidence, right? Not only the specific property that we're looking at.
I'm looking for, what is the timeline on the district? It's from when to when?
So, Maria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. So the hearing is closed. Now you guys are discussing. So if you have a question for staff, we have to have a motion to open the public hearing.
Our architectural historian should be able to answer that question.
It's really between the wars. They're, you know, from the late teens through.
So I just want to caution us that the commissioner not to provide, if there's a question for staff to answer, you could have a motion to open the public hearing.
But it's predominantly from the early 20s through the war era.
Yes, but we can't take that as gospel.
If you'd like to reopen the
Yes, I would like
hearing,
to.
then I need a motion and I need a second.
I move to reopen the hearing, please.
Second.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The Hyde Park Historic District runs from 1887 to 1933. So to drill down on the issue with the railing, the front railing has a sitting rail on the front that at the time met code, if there was a code. In the back, if you put that sitting rail, it won't meet today's code. It needs the spindles that come down. From grade to the deck, if it's less than 30 inches, then you could lower that top rail to what would be appropriate, between 24 and 28 inches in height historically. But since this is at 30 and for today's code, you would have to be at 36. The illustration that was provided is more of a contemporary railing. The railing would have had a bottom rail that the pickets die into. They receive that picket, and then a more beefier top rail would be period appropriate for the back.
Thank you. Any other questions before we close this?
Being we've got it reopened, I'll ask the applicant one question.
And then
She gets another rebuttal, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Being you are doing this addition in the rear, are there any plans for regrading or landscape work in the rear that might change the actual grade as of today?
No, sir. Because the foundation is going to be a pier and joist foundation, we do not foresee there being any real grading adjustments. Currently, everything grades to the back and the sides of the site, so we don't foresee that changing.
And I'm assuming you do not have any sort of topo here with you tonight?
I don't believe the topo was on the survey.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we close it again? So you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you have anything.
Not needed.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close the hearing again and go back to our discussion. So other than the railing, which I think we can facilitate in the motion if we do proceed, are there any other components for this project and its intents that we should review or discuss?
Real brick. Real brick on the piers.
I would agree.
Yep, I mean, the building has it originally, and it should continue in that same vein. If it did not, that would be a different discussion at this point in time, but that's not the condition that we have.
I agree. I think other than those, I think the project's moving in the right direction. I do, I wish there was some reconsideration for more openings on the elevation, the short end of the elevation for the new addition facing the new deck. It just seems like a missed opportunity for the homeowner. But other than that, I find it compatible.
Yeah, we don't need to take a quick peek at the proposed floor plan, renovation floor plan?
No, I mean, knowing what's there, she stated there was a bedroom and then there was a washroom and restroom below. For me, those aren't as important as knowing that there is an opportunity to do something if they want to. And, they can certainly reconsider that as they move forward with their permitting, because this is conceptual for the most part at this point, and take that into consideration.
Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC number 22-240 for the property located at 1405 South DeSoto Avenue with the following conditions. That the agent coordinate with staff the railings at the rear, the brackets, that real brick be provided on the piers, and that true divided lights be provided on the doors. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park Historic District guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. That the addition meets the height, width, the massing, and the building form typical in the district and is in compliance with the Secretary of the Interior's standards.
Because
Yes. No, wait,
yeah,
I did it, I finished.
Oh, I didn't hear him say the Hyde Park design. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I heard a second.
Can we amend that to include the lighting hardware?
Will you accept that amendment?
Yes, I accept that.
I'll second that.
So before we up down the vote, do you understand the conditions put forth tonight as a condition? And you do need to come to the mic and say yes or no, please. Thank you.
Yes, I understand the conditions.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
This is a It's approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right now, we'll move on to the next case.
Commissioners will return to item ARC 22-168 at 5601 North Branch Avenue. Do I need to do the photo presentation again? Okay. So as I, okay, so this is a contributing property in the Seminole Heights Historic District, a 1926 bungalow, and the request is for new construction of an accessory structure and site improvements, including fencing. This initially came to us as a violation, and the applicant is before you now to request approval for the work that's been done on the site. Moving to the photo presentation, before you is the location map of the historic district with the local historic district outlined in red and the National Historic District outlined in blue. You can see the property in question highlighted in green. The 1920 Sanborn map here shows the structure, the house on the site in question there in green. Again, the red line is the local historic district boundary. This property is located at the corner of Comanche and Branch Avenue. This is the present-day aerial showing the property again at the northeast corner of Comanche Avenue, which is the east-west street, and Branch Avenue, which is the north-south street. This is the front of the residence. So we're looking here at the west facade. This is the north side of the house. This is the property just to the north of the subject site. And then this is the south side of the house. And the view of the rear south side of the house and the rear yard. This view is looking east along Comanche Avenue. This is looking to the south, directly from the subject site across Comanche. And this is the rear of the residence on its east side. This is the proposed accessory structure at the rear of the property, just adjacent to the alley. This is looking at it from a different angle, so we're looking facing northeast here. And then this is the south and the east sides of the proposed accessory structure, so we're looking more northwesterly. And this is the back of the accessory structure. This is the view looking from the alley across Comanche Avenue. So the subject site would be to your right. And the view looking north along the alley. So the subject site's to your left. And that concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I will bring up the drawings on screen here, and the applicant will provide her presentation.
Thank you very much. My name is Michelle Day. I live at 5601 North Branch Avenue, the property in question. I'm a co-owner with my husband. The site plan that you see here is basically after the fact. just to capture the correct dimensions of everything that was done. To explain, we purchased the house September 30th, 2020. We spent 6 months renovating. I'm sure you can imagine how difficult it is to find contractors in the past year and a half, and not all are unfortunately aware of rules, and that I am now aware of. So we installed a 6-foot PVC fence. You can see that we carried it from the back corners of the house, trying to minimize impact on surrounding areas. We didn't want to cut off the yard to our neighbor to the north, nor did we want to have to remove a hedge and go to the fence line. I'm sorry, the sidewalk, because we just didn't want to impinge on the neighborhood as such. We used vinyl fencing because, and these are numbers I'm pulling off the internet from a site, and even I think they're overstated, but it's still a comparison. That vinyl will last 50 years. Pressure treated wood, well maintained, is 15 to 20 years. On top of that, when we moved into our house, we spent, our floors were so ridden with termites that we spent $13,000 to replace all of the flooring with real wood. And the last thing I wanted to do was add wood that was going to become termite infested in the future or attract them to our wood house. The shed was added. Unfortunately, it's a prefabricated shed. I don't know if there's, well, and then the concrete pad that was poured in front of the shed. Also, we were trying to just minimize, it's not a driveway into the shed, but it's at least a working area in which to bring bikes up into the shed, or work on a lawnmower if needed, things like that. I don't know what else to say for the elevation, so if we can move on to, thank you. On the elevation, I have educated Tough Shed that this is a historic district, and that even though we are City of Tampa and it's under 150 square feet, guess what? There's guidelines. So hopefully you'll see less of people like me in the future. I know one of the conditions for moving forward is to put horizontal siding on. We are in the process of getting quotes. I don't know what timeline that will be. I don't even know what the process is going to be, but this is a simple front-facing shed. The doors are dual open. There is an exterior door within the property that we can access the shed as well. If you scroll down, there are more materials listed that I really cannot speak to a whole lot. There is, sorry, I'm not even seeing what the walls are made of. I know inside it looks like insulation pressed, and on the outside it's wood composite. I believe there's also engineering plans that give more information. I have no other feedback on the shed. It's a very simple design. There is a proposed driveway. One of the responses that we received was about parking, requiring 2 parking spaces on the property. Apologies that this is a very rough shot. So this was the original proposed. There was a actual permit submitted, and pending outcome of this. It does require moving a FiOS box that is in the ground. There is a work order open to move that a few feet to the side to be able to account for the apron of this driveway. I know from the feedback that we'll probably need to extend this beyond the proposed 36 feet, just because of the cars, needing to be behind the front of the house, and that is fine. We can augment this recommendation. This, I believe, was in response to the shed and whether it was a shed or a garage, and then the concrete pad that we had put in. So the hope is that if possible, if we could keep the concrete pad as is and then put in these 2 spaces for dedicated parking, that would be appreciated. Apologies, just going through my notes really quick. I also believe there was an initial suggestion of cutting the driveway through the backyard, extending what we had, but I really feel that this is more in line with the street. Looking at all of the other neighbors on our particular block, the majority of them that have driveways are on the side and are the runner type style, as this style is. Lastly, I don't have much more, is, our other reasons for the changes that we've made, specific to the fence. There are other houses in our neighborhood. I have not reported them because I just don't feel it's right to, but there's a house 2 blocks, exactly 2 blocks north of us that has a vinyl fence. They're also on the corner, and 2 blocks east of them is another home with a vinyl fence, also on a corner. So they have both front and side facing visibility. I've checked, and neither one of them have ever been reported for a code violation for fencing, and I don't see that they've gotten permits either, or even, sorry, I'm trying to think of the word, not acceptability, but that's the closest, appropriateness for that fencing. That's really all I have to add to my presentation.
All right, we will move on to the staff report.
Okay. Commissioners, Elaine Lund. Staff finds that a portion of this application is consistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines with conditions. However, the portion of the application requesting the vinyl fence is inconsistent with the design guidelines, as the design guidelines do state that it's not permissible to have the fencing such as this visible from the street. The only other conditions that we had in the staff report were that the parking be provided that's required by the city's code of ordinances, and that does require 2 on-site spaces. They will need to be placed if the driveway goes in this location on the north side of the house. They will need to be 2 tandem spaces behind the front wall of the building. And then also that the other condition is that the exterior materials on the accessory structure should be consistent with the primary structure. And the example given in the staff report, which the applicant touched on, was that the siding on the shed should be horizontal to be consistent with that on the primary structure. With that, I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Ooh, really? There was public
Thank you, Ms.
feedback as
Lund.
well.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, there were, I don't know if that was the time, but there were some
No.
public feedback.
We actually have to move on to public comment, and then you will have time to rebut.
Yeah,
If
I'm
there's-
sorry if I can interject. There are some letters in your packets
Oh,
that I
yes.
should mention to make sure that those are properly recognized.
Yes, we have 5 in our packet. That closes the staff report, yes? Yes. Okay, thank you, Ms. Lund. We'll move on to public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to come forward, I'm not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close that portion and we'll begin asking questions. So, start on my right this time.
Can you bring the site plan back up? Or maybe minimize the size of this so we can see the backyard?
The backyard's not in this view.
Okay. I was just looking at other options. On the, in the pictures, it does not look like there was any sort of cuts or scoring in the, I'm gonna call it a driveway, because that's what it looks like, but the pad going to the shed.
That was already, there was cuts in the granite already made, and so we just stayed within those lines so that we didn't have to interfere with the granite in any way.
Okay.
So there was, if you look in another picture, you'll see a lot of concrete rubble kind of in the back right of, outside the shed, and it looks like there used to be a concrete pad there that was broken up at some point, so it looks like there used to be a drive at some point.
But there's no cuts in the new concrete.
Can you show that photograph that you were referencing? Do you have that with
Oh,
you?
the concrete, I meant the granite, I'm sorry.
No, I saw the granite was recessed.
No. There is one, actually, where you look at the, that first, like, tile, there is one along that line, and then there isn't any other within.
Okay.
So do you understand the question that he's asking? The white concrete in this image, we call that a drive, right? Whether or not it's for a car, that's what we're calling it for today's use. And the question is, it doesn't look like there's any scoring, which means there are lines that help break up the concrete into smaller areas.
So if you go back 2 pictures, I think it was. It's, no. Right there, that one. If you look between the 2 stones that are on the driveway, there is actually a line that's going across that separates those 2 slabs. Otherwise, there aren't any other lines.
Okay.
So not knowing what that distance is, just as a recommendation, I would potentially look at getting that cut, because if not, it's gonna crack anyway.
Okay.
On the siding, what is your plans? I heard you say vertical siding, and staff is recommending to match the house.
I would have to get quotes on what is available. I'm glad to hear that you don't want to exactly replicate siding, because when I look at our siding on our main structure, it is different from the other houses in the area. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's a curve to it that I haven't seen elsewhere. It's not just boards like stacked on top of each other. So I don't have any details yet after receiving the staff report of what we'll be able to put on there in place. Looking through Tough Shed's engineering plans, when we purchased the shed, I did want it to match the house and asked if they had horizontal siding, and they said, no, we don't have that. I also asked if they had metal roofs to match the house. They didn't do that either. When I got the engineering plans after the code violations, it specifically states that siding, horizontal siding and metal roofs are options. So that's the first thing I'm waiting here back from Tough Shed is, can they convert the existing vertical into horizontal, and then getting other quotes as well, but that will have to be a continuation.
Did Tough Shed provide you with any sort of wall detail?
There is an engineering plan, aside from the elevation. The only other thing is the engineering documents that I uploaded to Acela, which I apologize, Elaine. I'm not seeing it there. Architecture, no, hold on. I think it's the architectural.
Elaine,
Wall
there's
section.
a tab open at the top to the right that says architectural wall section.
Wall
No,
section.
well, that's not, there's a more detailed engineering spec if you want to see that. It might be on the next, well, it's the same thing. If you can go back to the documents that are uploaded. And I think one more to
That wasn't
the
it.
page. No.
That's what we just looked at.
It's not
I want to know the thickness.
the attached
I don't
drawing.
think it is.
It doesn't really matter, it's what it looks like from the outside anyway.
Oh, I know I had that.
It's a tough shed,
Yeah.
So,
I apologize.
that's
It should be here.
fine.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So my next question is, and I think I know the answer, but has this been in front of anyone at the building department yet?
No.
Okay. Is there any plans for design changes of the doors? The swinging door or the walking door?
The only thing I've thought is to match better, I can't say it would match with the house exactly, but I know if we look at, I think there's a view at our neighbors, their shed, might be, no, not that one. Right next door to ours is, their garage has like the cross beams, and I can't say that that's necessarily in style with the house, but at this time, there was no other plan for changes.
Okay. All right, I'll let my fellow commissioners take it.
I have no question at this time.
Mr. Prokop?
In your testimony, you said that you bought the house in September 30th, 2020, and then spent 6 months renovating it.
Yes.
Can I ask, is there a way, see if we get, staff knows if there's any other permit that was pulled on this house? Did you pull
I
a
will
permit?
tell you there were no permits
Kamar,
pulled.
yeah,
Okay,
that's, so you're only considering what's before you today?
okay,
I just clouded your opinion.
okay. Can I have staff put up the Sanborn map and zoom in again, please? Because there's an outbuilding on that I could barely see zoomed out. So there is an outbuilding on the original Sanborn map, but it's back towards the middle of the property against the alley. And I think that's the crumbled
Mhm.
concrete slab that you mentioned before. But it appears to be right up against the alley and probably had access from the alley, not from the street.
Mhm.
That would just be my first guess. No, I don't have any other questions at this time. Well, I will ask, was there any consideration when you put the fence in to put it forward of the air conditioning unit?
No, because the distance between, if you look at this particular map, the distance between our property line and the neighbor's line would have left a very thin razor of space. And even when I told him I was putting in a fence, his eyes kind of went wild because he was thinking of access. So we put it specifically there because there are bushes that kind of block, but not, at least from the front view. As you're moving further north, it is visible. But it was more just to try to not impede on the neighbor next door.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions.
No questions.
Before the applicant has time for a rebuttal, I do want to address something. She stated that there are other properties nearby that also have vinyl fence. That should not be a part of your consideration on whether or not you should deny or grant the certificate of appropriateness regarding the vinyl fencing. I just want to explain that.
Okay, I do have a question. When you placed the shed, was there consideration for other locations on the property other than where you placed it currently?
It felt best to put it in the back. And if you look at the site map, there are trees that are in the northeast.
Can you show your
corner.
survey again? Are they on the survey?
Yeah.
Sorry, Elaine.
No problem.
Could you bring that up again?
Yeah, I mean, they're not very large trees, but, you know, you can see on our property.
Well, a
there's-
22-inch tree is a pretty large tree.
It's, and there's no impact on roots. We did a tree evaluation, but, so if, the way that the tree grows up, it couldn't really be much further, the shed couldn't be further north, because then it would have impeded on that tree, and it didn't. But so if, I felt like the only other place to put the shed would have been like in that corner, and there's just shrubbery and the tree back there, so
Okay.
we didn't want to knock it down.
I want to go back to your statement about the fence and needing to keep it back because of concerns from potentially from your neighbor about access to that side of their house.
Mhm.
On your survey, it shows that you have at least 3.5 feet clear between your property line and the house, the neighboring house.
Yes.
Okay.
I know that they have a gate on that side, but it just, looking at it, it feels like it would have been claustrophobic,
Okay.
and
But that is correct. Your survey is pretty recent, so that should be
Yes.
correct.
this was done after the the code violations were filed.
Okay. Regarding the shed roof material, I believe that was an asphalt tile, right?
Yes, we did
Okay,
it.
and then what are the materials for the soffit, the underside? I couldn't tell what that was from the drawings. Do you know?
It would be in the better document that we can't find. Actually, if you can go to the builder's helper, that, please, Elaine, that might have it in there. If we scroll down, probably not. No.
Yeah, none of this says anything about the materials.
I'm sorry, can you please, Elaine, go back to the files that have been uploaded? I think you have it sorted maybe by upload date? No, yes. Because it would have been time, Minta, Archbishop, no. I feel like I must have deleted it because I would have to provide that separately.
Okay.
I don't believe anything is plastic, just from the look of it, everything is wood, but I apparently removed the
So as
document.
far as you know, the shed itself is, the finished materials are wood?
Correct.
Okay. That's it for my questions. Any other questions for the applicant before we? Seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I think the only thing to add, just as we know the house is in need of painting, and for the accessory to match the house, this has been going on since, I think, February, is it January, February? So we really were waiting to get the house painted until we've got the siding and everything decided about the shed. We weren't going to paint a shed that might need to be altered. So that's just the last thing, that we will be, in fact, painting and matching both structures, because currently they do not match. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case.
I am a bit disappointed that this has to come to us as a point of matter after the fact. If it had occurred in a more timely fashion under normal circumstances, I think we would be having a series of different questions and concerns for this. And I'm going to preface my statements by saying that I'll be looking at this right now as if this were being presented to us in the first place under normal circumstances. First of all, the accessory structure. Typical patterning in this district would have more typically a common accessory structure access from the interior of the site. Now, if you were going to have an accessory structure traditionally requiring some sort of access to a right-of-way, in this district, that would be from a platted alley. Barring the fact that the property may not have a platted alley, which is not the case, then we would have some manner of street access, which in the case of this being a corner lot would equally be a side yard. But I find that the positioning and placement and access to this structure to be somewhat inappropriate to the overall pattern of the district. Materiality is an entirely different matter. I can understand how you would want to have an accessory structure not entirely detailed to mimic the existing, but there should be some touchstones involved with that. The roofing, the rafter details, the siding details, the trim details for your doors. These are all elements that should dovetail more or less to the existing, which we don't have here. And then the last thing of the fence. I find it quite jarring that we have on this subdued site, subdued neighborhood, a very, if you want to call it, a jarring white PVC fence. It comes in different colors, you know, and different patterns and different details. I think if it was handled a little more sophisticated or a more appropriate manner, more mimicking a true wood fence, I don't think we'd be objecting to it as much as it is right now. But it doesn't fit with the neighborhood. It doesn't fit with the site or the material palette of the site. That's my take on the matter right now.
As to the point regarding where the shed sits and access to it, there is plenty of historic reference even in this neighborhood for even at corner lots that you can access from the secondary street to an accessory structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it needing to be off the alley is not necessarily so. If it was an interior lot, obviously that would be the only way that you could get to it, unless you were coming from the front. So its location, while maybe not as aesthetically appealing to some as others, it's appropriate. It matches the historic district. Materiality, if it's all wood, material is not a problem. I do think the detailing and the trim, those sorts of things, while they do not need to necessarily match 100%, it should be horizontal siding. And I don't feel that the roofing needs to be metal to match the primary. Many accessory structures, you know, the material choices, trim and that sort of thing, they usually step down from the primary to allow the primary to reside as the primary. I do feel that the vent detailing should be reconsidered. It is metal, it's painted white. Reconsideration of, how that's trimmed out should be considered, as well as the trim around the doors, especially the doors facing the street. The hardware is just completely inappropriate, and the locking mechanism, hardware as well. The fence is just inappropriate. The material choice is just inappropriate. And I understand that oftentimes owners come into neighborhoods and they don't fully understand what they're getting into. However, hopefully somebody made you aware that you're buying into a historically, a historic district with governance besides the typical. And I understand these are hard lessons to learn, especially after you put so much money forward. But hopefully there's some way to reuse some of the structure. I know typically you can reuse at least the posts. But yeah, the fencing is just inappropriate with the vinyl. As to its location, the fence, I do believe it should pull forward and come forward of the AC unit. If not that, there has to be some sort of screening for that AC unit. It's just inappropriate for the district. And then regarding the 2 tandem parking spaces, they absolutely need to pull forward and be removed out beyond the face of the primary structure from the front. And then the scoring on the concrete, we talked about that a little bit already. It doesn't have to mimic the 3-foot by 3-foot patterning that's typical of this neighborhood, but it certainly needs to have some scoring. not only for the structural capacity of the concrete paving, but just that aesthetically, these neighborhoods offered more than just a slab of concrete. And those are my thoughts.
I have a hard time with both the location of the. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with both the location of the shed, the fact that it's just a prefab shed. I don't, whether it's made out of wood or anything, but just a prefab shed put on the corner on the property line facing the street, I have a real issue with. I would have less of an issue with if it was relocated further back away from the street and accessed from the alley and it wasn't visible from the street. The fence, yes, I'm very familiar with this neighborhood, and most, if not, the vast majority of fences are about at the halfway point back from the house, so that they split the side yards in half, and half is in front and half is in back. And that's the historic pattern throughout the neighborhood. I think a vinyl, it's actually an allowable fence material, but the way this fence is built is not. The detail and the construction of it is what I have an issue with, not necessarily that it's vinyl versus wood.
So vinyl is actually not allowed in the district, not in any of our districts.
At all of that district.
No,
'Cause
even
I've
though the
read-
city may allow it under the design guidelines, it is not allowed in the historic
Okay, I thought
district.
I read a sentence where, in the design guideline, where it says it could be
Nope.
allowed if the detailing in the design was appropriate, but if that's the case, then that's a moot point. It's a moot point. But yeah, I have an issue with just a prefabricated structure in a historic district being visible from the street, period. I don't think that's appropriate at all. And then the fence is clearly inappropriate, both in location and in material. That's all I have.
We've established that it can't be, I think that it cannot be PVC, this fence. And I hate to have to, I hate to have to say that to somebody who's spent real money on this thing. But we've, it just is, it's just not possible. We had a case recently where it was like it was a big apartment complex, and they had to take out blocks of inappropriate like 2 blocks of inappropriate fencing. You're not alone in this, in being in this situation, and nonetheless, it's something that a lot of people in the district are very sensitive to. We try to, it's something that we're trying to maintain in the district, is this line, no PVC. It has, let's see, it's a wood shed, and if it were not, there's a big problem with the doors, but if the doors were not visible, we would still be having a problem with it, would we not?
I don't have a problem with it. There are historic precedents, one right across the street. Now, the replacement structure isn't necessarily what I would approve today, but it was historically correct. There are others from that Sanborn image when we asked to look at it again, showed several in the vicinity. And you can go to other historic districts and find similar examples.
But not pre-engineered.
So pre-engineered, if I reopen the hearing and ask the question of staff, I think they would say yes, but I believe we've actually had pre-engineered structures for accessory structures in cases and approved them. There's actually one particular company that I know of that has been in all the districts that come before us that has placed accessory structures that face secondary streets.
Brick Street?
Mm-hmm.
Secondary street is, its brickness is not important.
Some are bricks, some are paved over with asphalt, but yes.
But the point is that they could be made appropriately too, something more sympathetic to A, neighborhood, and B, primary structure.
I agree. I think there are ways to work with the existing structure to make it more appropriate. However, I guess I should ask this question before we close it. Can I get a motion to reopen the hearing, please, from someone?
I'll offer a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
For legal staff or preservation staff, in this case, if one thing is,
You can Kamaria Pettis
Can we
Mackle from,
split
you can bifurcate the motion.
okay, yes, that's exactly what I'm asking. Thank you very much.
So can you close the,
Yeah, can we have do you need a rebuttal at all?
I feel I was gonna say something, but I have no idea what it was.
Okay. We will go ahead and close the public hearing. Before we debate any further or entertain a motion, I just want to state for the record to the client, to the agent, to both you and your husband, commend you tremendously for taking on a historic property and coming into neighborhoods where the body of citizenry is very strong in this particular area in terms of being champions for continuing to preserve and champion for preservation of our historic stock in our cities. I just want to say that right off the bat, okay? And we support you. As I said, it's just a very hard lesson to learn, so. Any other points we need to discuss?
And that's about the only thing I've got is it's unfortunate that we're here tonight because of, you know, maybe even just lack of knowledge. And they unfortunately were not advised by their contractor or whomever they had helping them of all the different potential steps. And as they go through the permitting process, there is even potentially some more items that may come up, especially with this being a temporary shed. And unfortunately, I see this out there, especially these days, more often than I would like as a licensed contractor. So it's very unfortunate, but, you know, the shed itself, I asked the question about, or asked you to bring back up the rear yard because I was trying to figure out a better placement. You are going to have to extend the drive, whether it be this one and or the other one for transportation reasons. So there's going to be an opportunity that presents itself to relocate this shed maybe in a more appropriate location. The fencing, I have to agree. As far as the placement of it, I think it does definitely need to come forward so that it you know, shields not only the mechanicals and potentially the shed, additional cars, whatever the case may be, but it's just historically correct. And unfortunately, the material is not. So rather than continuing to beat this dead horse, you know, I think we kind of know what we have to do here.
So anyone willing to entertain a motion? Perhaps our contract. Well, first of all, I want to bring to mind the fact that we can bifurcate this. We can split this up.
Kamaria Pettis Mackle from the City Attorney's Office, if a board member would like to do a motion regarding the vinyl fence, you could take that motion first, or, you know, likewise for the accessory structure, but you can split your motion up. Can you turn your microphone?
I move to deny certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 22-168 for the property located at 5601 North Branch Avenue because based upon the finding of fact,
Specifically, which part?
I'm sorry, located at 5601 North Branch Avenue pertaining to the fencing, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is inconsistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. That it's an inappropriate material based on the standards.
I second the motion.
All those in favor of the motion regarding the vinyl fencing, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
That was a unanimous vote, so that's denied. And then on the accessory structure, I believe we also have to consider the driveway as well, since that was presented? Or is that just a transportation?
That's a transportation requirement.
So they have to do it no matter what?
Right.
Okay, so the accessory structure. We can talk about it. Anyone? So that would,
Can be a laundry list of conditions, obviously.
I'm wondering if there is a possibility of simply, I mean, the shed with its swinging doors, if we go back to, the 1930s, I'm certain that there were a variety of sheds with swinging doors.
yep.
And, well, the hardware is not, I do not find the hardware to be offensive. We can discuss that. And I'm wondering if it is appropriate for this shed to be simply slid back a couple of feet so that they could get a fence in front of it. Because though it's prefab, it's just, my understanding is that it's sitting there on a,
Yeah, there's no foundations, it's sitting on it.
It's sitting on a raised slab. It is, in my opinion, appropriate in terms of its placement and having its doors facing and being open. It is no different than a garage, honestly. It's an accessory structure.
yeah, yeah.
What it's used for,
No, it's not just that,
Can you turn your microphone on?
it's not just an accessory structure, it is a pre-manufactured building in a historic district, which I still have serious issues with, especially connected to a street. And just because it's been allowed in the past, I still don't think that that's an appropriate thing to do in a historic district, period.
I think,
And I would have very little problem with it if it was behind an appropriate fence, inboard of the property line, or accessible from the alley, and not accessible from the street with a cast concrete driveway. I would have far fewer issues if it was somewhere else on the site, which I don't think is a difficult thing to do, or a very costly thing to do.
the prefab, unfortunately, I mean, it's the verbiage. And the reason I wanted to see a wall detail was because I was trying to figure out how we could make a prefab
How you could modify it.
not look prefab. Unfortunately, with the way things are going in this industry, unfortunately, I think we're going to see more and more creative ways to produce buildings.
In a pre-manufactured manner, I
Correct.
understand that. But is that still inappropriate in a historic district
It's,
on a street front?
it's,
And are we setting a precedent?
Well, so I want to caution, you're concerned about this case and
Right.
this case only.
Right.
And not whether or not you're setting a precedent.
I wish with building codes, there was a way to make temporary structures continue to be temporary structures. but unfortunately, there isn't. They're going to have to secure it to the foundation. Everything's going to have to be to code, which makes it to where now it's an ADU, it's an accessory structure.
I want to remind everyone, when making this motion, if you're as specific as you want to be and feel that you need to be to make the motion, you can incorporate certain things into the motion. However, remember that this has not gone through the building department yet.
So with that, I don't know that I have a huge issue with it being prefabbed. I just know that it's going to have some changes made, unfortunately, to adhere to the district, to look like it's in keeping with the district.
But we can't move.
But
I don't think we can move with all the appropriate verbiage to accept it in any current condition.
We have several ways to deal with particular component of this case. We have the final approval with conditions, denial, and continuation. Okay, so if anyone wants to move forward with a motion, we can entertain a motion.
You going? I move to grant a continuance in
No,
case,
You,
I cannot?
the applicant has not asked for a continuance.
Okay, so I thought we could.
No.
Okay. To you.
I'm sorry?
Can
I move to deny us.
One moment, I'm sorry.
Mr. Vila, can you, I can't hear what she's trying to say.
Oh, I said, can I ask for a continuance?
Is that what you would like to do regarding, and this is regarding the accessory structure portion?
I feel like the commission needs more information about what changes could be made to make it fit the neighborhood before really making a final decision. So I feel like if I could come back with plans.
So if you move forward with the continuation, we need to know the next available dates that you understand the length of time that you may have to wait in order to come back before the commission.
Would that be enough time?
So Commissioners, looking at our schedule, and as we move forward, we have a lot of cases that are coming to our oncoming agendas, but we do have a slot open for the July 13th public hearing cycle
But when do I need information in?
by June 22nd.
It's the 8th. I can't guarantee that I'm gonna hear finals from enough contractors to be able to promise June 22nd, so.
If not, then we're looking at September. Because July and August is full right now at this time.
I can't promise June 22nd just because of the responses by contractors. In order to get back for the July 13th date, I can try, but if it's up to you whether you.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we try to be aggressive and continue this? If this is the applicant's request to the July 13th public hearing, we'll work with her. If that deadline cannot be met, then we'll push it to later in the year.
Is that acceptable to you if that's your ask?
That's acceptable to me.
Okay.
And it's
So-
only regarding the accessory structure?
Right.
So we have another motion, please, for continuance to July 13th.
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-168 for the property located at 5601 North Branch Avenue in the Seminole Heights Historic District for the accessory structure only as presented tonight to the July 13th, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
Have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you so much for your time.
Taylor.
Sorry about that, Tamara.
Okay, Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. Our final item this evening is case number ARC 22-160, located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. This is an application for a front porch addition to a non-contributing, non-historic structure. This is a apartment building constructed circa 1984, and with that, I'll move, into the photo presentation. You can see on the 1920 Sanborn map that there was a residence on this site at that time. This map is showing the subject site in green on the north side of Francis Avenue between Morgan and Jefferson Streets. This is the location map showing where the subject property is within the historic district, with the local historic district boundaries in red and the national historic district boundaries in blue. And this is the present-day aerial of the site. Again, you can see the structure that's located there in green on the north side of Francis Avenue. This is the south side of the building, the primary facade. This is another angle of that side of the building. You get a look at the existing front porch as it stands today. This is a view toward the west side of the building. This is the house directly to the west, a contributing structure. And then looking at the east side of the building, the subject site. And the structure directly to the east of the property. Those are all the photos that we have for the presentation. So I'll have the applicant begin his request.
I just need to pull up the site plans.
Can you please state your name and your relationship to the project?
Hi, good evening, council. My name is Augustin Cintron. I am the owner and representing the case today. So what
He's not showing something from his phone, is he?
Yeah.
I didn't know. What can I do? Is there some other way I can? I thought everything I submitted online was suffice for this evening presentation.
Is it, and do we have access to it?
Should I speak or should I wait? So this is right here is a site plan. As you can see, the structure, all I'm doing is just adding the brand new stairs, replacing the stairs that are currently there, and extending and widening the porch area. So the dimensions will be 25 feet wide by 12 feet 5 inches depth to the building. Away from the building will be 12 feet 5 inches, And the elevation will be from the ground to the top floor will be 17 feet 5 inches. The material will be columns, will be cement columns, 12 by 12. The material of the porch will be wood, and the roof will extend over the porch to protect it from the rain and the sun, so that it can preserve it as long as possible. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's basically a brand new porch that is just a wider porch, and just to extend out and a new porch. That's all it is. It's nothing different than what it is. Just everything is brand new. As of right now, as you can see, it's not in good condition from the pictures. Also, the cement, there'll be cement that'll be added under the porch. It would be from one end to the building to the next, so that'll be 48 feet. The width will be, the frontage will be 48 feet, and the depth would be 12 feet 5 inches from the building. As you can see there, this is the proposal. Proposal says it's going to be 12 feet. The depth will be 12 feet 5 inches, and the width of the porch will be 25 feet. This is the proposed elevation. It's the same exact elevation now. It's the same height as it currently is now. The only difference is the width of the porch, and the depth is coming out a little further. And under the porch will be new concrete for the width of the building. And like I mentioned before, it's going to have the roof extend over the porch. It'll be the same material that is on the current roof right now, which is shingles, currently over on the roof right now, but it'll be extended over the porch. As you can see in the bottom photo there, that's exactly the proposed porch. Right now, we don't have anything covering the porch now. Wood columns will be going from the top of the first floor to the second floor to support the roof. But for the porch will be cement columns, 12 by 12 cement columns under the porch right now. That's it. I mean,
Can you walk us through these drawings, please?
the drawings, I'm not too familiar with obviously it was, this is, I didn't think I would have to go through these drawings exactly, but, so basically it's just, wow, to go through these drawings, I'm sorry about that.
If I may,
Yes.
we know that you're not a contractor or an architect, but if you know the materials,
It's going to be
know
wood.
the sizes, those sorts of things, generally, those are the things that we look for.
2 by 6. So we're gonna use a 2 by 6. We use 2 by 6 wood. 2 by 6 wood for the stairs portion. 2 by 6 wood. I gotta say also the columns will be, like I mentioned, cement columns, 12 by 12. What else? The hand railings, basic hand railings, 2 inches by 2 inches hand railings, cross, and I'm sorry, is there? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I just don't know. To me, it seemed very simple. But obviously, to describe every single piece of material that's going to be in the porch, it's nothing very basic to what it's already there. Just basically extending it. We're extending the porch, and to make it more appealing to the neighborhood, and that's all we're doing. We're extending the porch out 25 feet. Right now it's not 25 feet, but we're extending out further from the building, and extending 12 feet from the building. Brand new wood and cement columns, and it's the same exact. The roof is gonna look exactly like what we have there right now. I'm sorry, wasn't 100% prepared to make the presentation that I was supposed to, but I didn't think it was, we're not doing anything different. We just extended it, giving a better appeal to the neighborhood. That's all we're trying to do.
All right. I think through the questioning, we can probably get some of the other things answered as we walk through everything with you. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No,
Okay.
all I'm doing is the concrete, 48 by 12 and a half. The porch will be 25 feet by 12 and a half, 12 feet 5 inches, and obviously the roof will be 25. Will be extended over the porch. Will be 12 feet from the existing structure now.
Okay. All right. I think we'll go ahead and move on to the staff report, and then we'll ask questions after the public. If there's any.
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. We found that this application was consistent with the Tampa Heights Historic District Design Guidelines. This is a non-contributing structure, and this is a relatively small improvement to the property, but it does affect the primary facade, so that's why it's here before you today. We did have some conditions in the staff report. I believe the sections and details are included in these construction drawings here. We also did want a little more information about any proposed changes to these, to the site, any parking or landscaping that might happen. And with that, I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lund. Seeing no one else in the audience, I don't think we have anyone here for public comment. So we'll go ahead and close that portion. We're gonna ask you questions.
Of course.
Elaine, can you pull up the site plan again, please? That's just the survey. Is there a site plan at all? Oops, wrong one. Is there a ground floor plan in that set of construction documents that he had? It would be up above that. Maybe there. Yeah, okay, right there. I do have a couple questions. I'm just going to start off. What are you doing at the ground level? So what your apartments at the ground level are going to have a new entryway, basically. What's on the ground there?
The ground level are two bedrooms. So basically at the ground level, I will just add cement. More right now, it's basically just dirt and very little area of cement. So I plan to extend the cement from one end to the building 48 feet to give it better appeal for the tenants to make it more appealing, the building. So like I mentioned before, the ground level, there is 2 apartments. It is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, each apartment side by side on the ground level, and I plan to add concrete, put brand new concrete across the front of the building.
Okay, is that currently indicated on this drawing? The limits of the concrete, is that consistent?
No, it's on the site plan.
It's on the site plan?
Yes.
Elaine, can you go to page 3 of that set? That's the second floor. We'll go back to the other one you were going to then. Can you zoom into that, please? I'm sorry, it's a little hard to read because the line weights are so. Is it more or less the width of the primary structure and it goes to those AC units to the left of the primary facade?
No, it goes to the end, one end to the other end.
Yes, it's the width of the primary
West
structure,
is
correct?
the width of the primary structure at the moment, yes.
Plus a little bit to go to the AC units, but that's all new concrete.
All new concrete, yes.
And that concrete sidewalk that's in front of it, it says 4-foot concrete sidewalk that's just to the south of that concrete area. Is that brand new as well?
No, that's already existing.
That's existing. Okay. All right. Are there any wall sections in your construction documents that you know of? Can we look at those again? Elaine, I'm sorry. Right there. Can we look at the ones on the right, please? They look like construction documents. Do you know, so these are not concrete columns, they're actually concrete masonry units, so they're blocks that are stacked on top of each other?
Yes.
Do you know if they will be finished with any other material or just painted?
We don't plan on, I don't plan on finishing it. If we are gonna finish with anything, it'll probably be stucco, concrete, stucco. I mean, and that's pretty much it. I mean, if there's anything requirement, if you make any comments, and we will obviously do it, I'll do it, but at the present moment, I thought, leaving the concrete columns
Okay.
will be fine.
And then the wood columns, they're just 6x6 attached with hex bolts. Those are my questions for now. Anyone else with a question?
I'd like to follow up with that. So we have the concrete column coming up, and it's basically going to be a painted surface. The deck at the second floor level, what is that material? Is that an all-wood deck or is that a concrete deck?
All wood,
All-wood deck,
yes.
okay. And then we're going to have the gable roof above it.
Yes.
What is going to be the finish of your underside of your wood deck? Is it going to be open to the structure?
Yes.
Okay. And the finish to your gable roof that overhangs all of this roof area, are you going to have a ceiling finish on that?
Yeah, under the roof?
Yes, sir?
Yes, we plan to put sheetrock under the roof.
Okay, so it'll be painted sheet. And then the last thing I have a question on is on the gable face itself, that triangular space up there.
Okay.
What is going to be infilling that?
Right under the
Triangle.
The triangle, I'm assuming, I mean, from other projects I did, I'm assuming it's vinyl. If it's possible to put vinyl, I mean, if you have any recommendations, or obviously it's not a problem, we could put any material that you guys are comfortable with. But at the moment, we would just put, I think, from my other projects, it's similar to the same one, so I put vinyl right under the.
You might want to think about something tougher to handle your tenants.
No problem.
No problem.
Yeah.
You know, you might want to think of a painted wood surface or a painted hung stucco or any one of a number of different things.
Sure, no problem.
But you are planning on putting in a surface and it be painted in some fashion.
Yes, yes, but any comments you guys, any comments council makes, we will adjust it, finish these.
That's all I have for the moment.
Thank you.
Can you bring up a picture of the front facade, please? Are you planning to add any sort of gutter systems?
No, it wasn't part of the plans to add a gutter system at the present moment. But if it's required, not a problem, we could easily be done. It
I'm
wasn't,
I'm just asking so I know what other questions to ask as far as finishes go.
sure,
I will tell you from a construction standpoint, water coming off that roof and hitting new concrete right at the base of the building is gonna cause you some long-term issues.
of course.
But regardless, that's the reason for my question, is just to make sure that we're getting the appropriate material.
Of course.
What is the proposed roof material on the new porch extension?
The new porch extension, we just plan to use the same material that we currently have now. So it's going to be an extension over it. So shingles finishing on top of the roof. You mean on top of the?
Yeah. Are you planning to use shingles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, because parking has come up and will probably come up again, as one of the conditions, is the plan for these tenants to continue to park basically where I'm seeing them in the picture now?
At the present moment, yes. It wasn't. We never. I never had an issue with parking. Most of the tenants there was never an issue with parking before. But obviously, if there's an issue, I can adjust it.
All right.
Go ahead.
For, the parking is not a part of what's before you today.
Right.
It's just about the front porch addition.
So I was gonna actually ask a similar question in that vein. Are they required to go in front of anybody since they're doing an addition to the front? Once they do something like that, do they trigger anything within the city's requirements? I can't recall.
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff, there was this has been reviewed by our transportation planning staff, and their comment was that this project did not appear that it would trigger an entire site review. And
Okay, that's the basis of my question. So, yes, only the porch addition and its components.
Okay. So, by the looks of the wall details on the engineered plans, there's going to be a lot of strapping for wind strapping included in this. Is there any plans for hiding some of that? Is there any wraps in place, or will all of that be exposed? And if it is exposed, will it be painted to match?
If it is exposed, anything paint. I mean, obviously, I want make the building as most appealing as possible. So if anything is exposed, it will be painted over to cover it up. And you're referring to the roof, right?
Well, if you'll pull the wall detail back up, or actually any of those details. You'll see, even in these details, I mean, those are going to be, those are going to be hidden. But if you'll go to the column, just so he understands what there we go. So like that CBS 66 will be exposed coming up the side. You'll also have strapping at the roof level for sure that'll go from the column up into whether it be a truss or a rafter. So yeah, there you go. All of those straps. Now some of those obviously are going to be hidden, and most of those will be hidden from the street. But the ones I'm more concerned with are the ones that I feel like we're probably going to see at the top of the columns. So which leads into another question. Is there any plan to wrap the 6x6 columns to maybe even make them larger?
One of the ideas I was talking with the contractor was actually even the wood columns, putting stucco around the wood columns and making everything kind of almost as one column from the ground to the top. And those straps there are going to be covered with, I think, with either vinyl. I'm not exactly sure the material, but those are going to be covered with a clip.
Yeah, those will be covered.
Yeah, from the street. But to answer your question regarding the clip on the side for the columns, it would either be painted at minimal, but one of my ideas was to put stucco around it. That way it could give it better curb appeal from the street.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. So you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. If there's anything you'd like to add that you thought of while we were questioning.
No, only comments I have is if there are any adjustments I need to make, obviously, yes, I would love to make it for that particular neighborhood, so.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and discuss the case.
Should I sit down? Wait.
Did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, so sit down?
You can sit if you want, yeah,
I'll stand, no
but
problem.
we aren't gonna ask you a question right now.
Okay,
If you need to rest, you can sit.
that's all right.
When it comes to detailing the gable end, you were just talking about the straps. When we look to historic precedent, there are a lot of ways that we use trim details to help with those connection points. Personally, well, even professionally, stucco around a wood column, I just find that detailing problematic, and then over time, that can cause issues for the owner down the line. I highly recommend that we not go down the path of vinyl siding if we can help it. Plus, this primary structure doesn't have that material anywhere on it, so being more consistent and compatible with the primary structure, I would tend to look at the stucco as a material that's suitable for this particular project on a particular site. There was something else he was talking about. Oh, when it comes to the CMU columns, they absolutely need to be finished, in my opinion. I mean, it's just not compatible with the district. We don't see bare CMU anywhere.
Even painted.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, not even.
Yeah, bare or painted, exposed CMU in any way.
I think a stucco could be appropriate.
Yeah.
I think a stucco could be appropriate for that. And I would also kind of, I envisioned when I looked at this, the elevations, that the 12 by 12 CMU piers might want to proportionally be even a little bigger than 12 by 12 and stuccoed. And then the 6 by 6, if that was wrapped with something, so they became a little more, the slenderness factor, something about how skinny it all looks, doesn't look right. And if the piers were a little wider, and then a little beefier, and then if the wood columns above were wrapped in a wood trim or something appropriate like that, to make them a little bit thicker, that would be compatible with the handrail components. The other thought I had is the roof being a hip and not a gable, and that eliminates what we're concerned about with the fascia on the face of the gable and what kind of material that might be. If it became a hip, since the building is a hip, and if that porch became another hip component, and then it's just shingle and it matches the existing building.
Elaine, I'm sorry, could you put up page number 7, please? Just the front elevation would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're presented here. Thank you very much. We're presented here tonight with a very extensive structural construction document package. And I think perhaps one of the things that we're really missing here is not the structural issues. That's solved. That's a problem solved. I think what's missing here is an indication of your intention on your street presence. What do you want this to look like in terms of its material and its detailing from the street for your curb appeal?
It's not it's rhetorical. It
It's
means he's wondering for you.
Okay, yeah, sure, I was,
We're missing that component here, for our evaluation.
Well, yeah, I agree. I didn't mean to cut you off, but, we're dealing with a structural engineer, not an architect.
This from a builder.
From a builder. I think we're missing a really good opportunity here for not only the columns to present better, but we've also got a pretty sizable beam up there that we could wrap and create a nice piece of trim that would just take this building, which unfortunately is not a historic structure, but it is in a historic district, but it would add value to the district.
I agree. I think I commend the owner for looking at his property and reevaluating it and understanding that it needs some attention. And that you are doing more than just merely replacing what is existing. And you're also offering your tenants an opportunity to enjoy outdoor spaces that they don't currently have, right, and be more of that street scene. But I do agree with my colleagues. I feel like it still needs its clothes. It's got the skeleton. It's ready to go, but it really can't go out and party with the rest of the neighborhood, if you will. So there's just a layer, and I agree. I mean, there's some detailing, some trim, possibly looking at the wood columns and maybe not just dressing them with stucco, but reevaluating how they could be detailed with wood, perhaps, as a way to bring more beauty to your property, right? Agreed.
Can I say something?
That's just a comment.
Okay, sure.
You can, well, actually, we closed the, but that, any other comments or discussion points? Commissioner Myers, anything?
No, I'm just.
You're making notes? 'Cause you're, anyone else?
I'm in the seat.
And you're a good note taker.
He is taking good notes. I see him over there scribbling.
I concur with my fellow commissioner that the skeleton's there, the bones are there, structurally it's accurate, it's done, it's functional, but and now it's much bigger than the stairway and the porch used to be, and because it's so much bigger, a little more attention needs to be paid to its detailing and not its structure.
What it looks like, what it feels like.
Right, and its compatibility with other, bringing it more in tune with other adjacent properties, which are, the ones that we saw immediately adjacent are glorious examples.
Gorgeous.
And, just a little bit of work on some carpentry and some trim and some detailing on this could really enhance this submission and like you said, put some clothes on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this, when this was built, if there was a district in place or not, but
84, I believe, is on the date.
It's before the district. The district was in the mid-90s, if I believe.
But we now have an opportunity to bring it in keeping.
Right, and it
Make it more a part of.
Yeah,
and it's
its
not
district.
major. I mean, this is how it's gonna get built.
It's not going to
know?
be. It's not major changes at
Right.
all. I
It's-
think for us as a board, what we have to figure out is, are we comfortable
Can it move forward?
moving this forward at this stage with staff taking over,
With conditions.
or the alternative? And that's, I heard several items that are not, they're not small. I don't think they're major changes, but Hilt versus Gable, what are our thoughts on that?
I don't mind the gable.
I just think the gable causes, it raises another issue on treatment and detailing and expense that a hip may eliminate.
And I also like how it centers the center of the building.
Are you talking about the hip or the gable?
The gable.
Right. For me, I feel the gable adds an architectural relief, and it it actually pushes the building up, so it actually provides more of a vertical element. When you do the hip, it pushes it back down.
And if,
So it's like opening the door to the neighborhood.
Understand?
and whether you use stucco or some other finish, if it's done, appropriately, there again, going back to trim details.
Right.
We've got a really good opportunity here to bring a focal point to the front of a building that right now just doesn't have it. To me, the columns, and more the second floor columns, just the spindliness of the small nominal size of the column compared to the lower level need some attention.
Right.
But there again, if they're wrapped with, whether it be a wood or some other alternative material, that column's automatically going to get a couple inches bigger.
Right. And I think what we're discussing is it's design rather than structure.
Correct.
Well,
And,
It's architectural presence.
yeah. and-
instead of a 6x6, which is structurally okay,
Right.
an 8x8 wrap, now you got a 10x10.
Right. So,
But I feel that these are things that staff sees all the time and that they are very able to coordinate.
No, I don't see any of this as being a deal breaker. It's just a long laundry list of things to touch base with and get some input and get some decisions made on what that upgrade is going to look like.
if we push this forward in that manner, we need to be very specific and careful with our wording.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So,
Are we gonna have a motion for, to open a public hearing?
I don't see a need for it right now.
Do you have a question for us, or do you want to,
He'll
a
have,
comment, so.
no? Sorry.
he'll have an opportunity if there's conditions. Warren, or will he?
When we make the
We don't
motion,
normally get a question. So we don't normally entertain questions unless there's a question for continuance. That's the only thing.
Let us open it up and entertain the
He's-
question.
do you agree with that? That's the time that you say either agree with it or not. I would agree with it, and then we work out the details administratively.
I think staff is, I always bring the comment up because it is a long list,
Whatever they tell
but
you, say that you're amenable. It seems like you're flexible to something.
it's shorter than some weeks.
Okay.
Do we need to open the hearing back up?
I don't think so. Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. I was telling him how the hearing was gonna go, and it's probably gonna go either to be continued or final with some conditions attached to it, and he's comfortable with those conditions. But you could ask him as you put your laundry list together at the end to see if he's comfortable with those conditions.
After we make the motion?
After you make the
Yes,
motion,
correct.
correct.
Okay. All right. Anyone willing to entertain a motion?
He's been making notes.
Okay. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 22-160 for the property located at 310 East Francis Avenue with the following conditions. That the project as presented be further elaborated and the detailing be coordinated with staff to add stucco at the columns and at the first level and at the front-facing gable, and to add additional finishes to the structural wood columns at the second floor. Because, now, are there any changes that you folks would like to that, would like to make to that?
I'm good.
I think that was the only thing
Those
really
are the big hit items.
specifically.
Okay. because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights Historic District Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. Because while it is a non-contributing structure, it meets the current project improves the massing and building form and brings it into greater compliance with other buildings in the district.
I will second that motion.
And do you understand the conditions put forth tonight as we move forward?
Yes, so you, may I speak? Yes, so the reason that you just want the columns, the concrete columns on the first floor to, wrap with stucco, and the wood finishing on the second floor columns, wood columns. Am I correct?
Staff will work with you
Yeah.
the conditions.
Okay, sure.
But they're asking, do you accept the conditions as
As he mentioned?
as he mentioned?
As Dan Myers mentioned, yes.
Okay.
I do accept those
Okay.
conditions.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
It's a unanimous decision, and you're approved with conditions.
Right.
With conditions.
For conditions, sure.
Thank you so much, sir.
You survived your public hearing.
Thank you, guys.
We are closed, or we are adjourned until next month. We are closed. The kitchen is closed.
You bet.